Titan terrified me. Far more than any villain monologuing how they'll destroy the planet, far more than any villain that brutally terminates their victims on screen, far more than any villain that is designed to be terrifying. I don't know how, but Titan circumvents all logic and rationality, as I've never expected Jonah Hill to be such an effective antagonist, a villain capable of truly scaring me to the core. Do you want to know what's even scarier? Megamind released 15 years ago. Yeah, that shit got me shivering my timbers. So yeah, Megamind is such an amazing movie. It was a movie that initially got flack when it first released, but is now widely praised for its humor, its originality, and most of all, because of the complexity of its characters. I can easily pump out another video for its titular character because of the Marianas Trench level of depth he has, but I decided to go a different route for now, because I got some comments asking for Titan on my Syndrome video, and I want to show you guys how much I appreciate all the support you give and quite literally read all of your comments. But more importantly, Titan piqued my interest because of how so much more unnerving he is to me as an adult compared to when I was a kid, something that only a few characters are capable of doing. How did this happen? How can a villain dressed in a white-red leotard be so terrifying? Well, for that, we have to start from the beginning. If you've watched Megamind, you already know the rivalry between the protagonist and the hero. You know the age-old dance between Megamind and Metroman, the two stars of the whole film. Their battles are well known, written in records so much that there are actual scholars that have them down to a science. For the public, however, their spectacles are broadcasted through the voice of a single reporter, Roxanne, tasked to break down the stories of their encounters, and in front of her, a silent man holds a camera to capture every moment. That man is Hal Stewart. Hal looks like your stereotypical dorky loser. He's short, freckled, and not in great shape, an NPC you'll harass in Rockstar's Bully. He wore geeky t-shirts, obviously plays video game after work with a controller on one hand and a pizza slice on the other, which, by the way, is not something I inherently deem as negative because I'm basically describing myself. To me, he looks like one of those wimpy side characters you'd see in old 2000s films where their story arc is that they get the girl in the end by being true to their dorky selves. In this story, Hal pines for Roxanne, the reporter, the main damsel in distress, setting himself up as the underdog like in those stories. And it seemed in the beginning, Hal was just that type of character, with one glaring difference. You see, most dorky characters with a positive character development are the shy, timid type, admiring their romantic interest from a distance until they're called to action and be forced to interact with them, no matter how awkward they are. In Hal's case, however, it seems that he's gone past being shy. He's weirdly open to talking to Roxanne about his interest towards her, albeit in roundabout and rambling ways. He isn't shy. However, he is still an awkward, bumbling loser that stumbles all over his words whenever he tries to communicate with his love interest. And this has been going on for a while. As Roxanne said, they have been partners in the news agency for how many years? From this, we can infer that Hal has had this interest towards Roxanne for a long time, though I'm not sure if he was shy about them at first or he was never embarrassed by it to begin with. For most people, this seems harmless. I mean, come on, the guy looks like one bad wedgie away from meeting God. His design tells us that he is no threat. His lifestyle affirms us even more. You see, after a while, Minion pulled up information regarding Hal. We get to know that he is 28 years old with nothing outstanding to his name, no records, no achievements, and all of that is reflected by the way he lives. In a small apartment with a pull-up bed, a kitchen where laundry is hung, food containers everywhere, and on his wall is a poster of Roxanne overlooking him where he lays down. The life of this man seems barren. Nothing in his room can tell us about Hal's goals or ambition, well, other than his romantic endeavor. And you may think that maybe his personality is his redeeming factor. For some, maybe it is some sort of charm and somehow relatable. And I advise you to probably take a good hard look in the mirror, because if you see this man as anything but the quintessential nice guy, then I have some bad news for you. Hal is nice, in the most technical of definitions. He never outright says anything rude, especially to Roxanne. In fact, Hal puts Roxanne on a pedestal, masking his own opinions to match hers, complimenting her every time he gets the chance to. He is extremely nice to her, and therein lies what made Hal so scary. You see, every time he talked to Roxanne, it wasn't him per se. It was a forced caricature of a person with genuine kindness, holding back his true self just enough to parade as a good guy. He never was rude towards Roxanne, but he was creepily pushy, especially in that scene where he invited her to a quote-unquote party to his house, which, by the way, is just the two of them. He also overcompensated by ordering a bounce house and even hired wedding photographers, just in case. If your alarm isn't blaring telling you that this person is anything but nice, then this is an intervention. The main red flag, though, wasn't that. It wasn't the weird invitations or the concerning delusions, but rather it was his reaction towards rejection, his fear towards the word no. I would assume that Roxanne has declined most of his offers, but I wouldn't be surprised if she said yes to some of them, as Hal isn't really the best at hiding his outbursts towards rejection. This was demonstrated to us when he crashed out behind the van, berating himself and ultimately punching the vehicle, to which he hurt his hand, and blamed it on the van before storming off. Anger is scary to watch, but something about taking it out on yourself is a type of threat that is caged in glass. Because we know Hal is practically harmless, even in masked anger. So what happens if this man is given the powers of a god? In stories, there is something we call the lie, coined by K.M. Wayland. She says, the lie the character believes is a mistaken or limited perspective the character holds at the beginning of the story, which will be challenged as they go through the plot. Through this challenge, this lie will undergo multiple processes and external forces in which their characters can change for either the better or for worse. For example, in the movie, Megamind's lie is quite blatant. It's the fact that his ultimate goal was to be the baddest, to defeat Metroman, and all throughout the film, we get to see the ramification and the consequence of holding on to that lie, forcing Megamind to find his truth, that he is destined to be greater, a positive character arc. Hal, on the other hand, had a simpler lie that he forced himself to believe in, is that he is the main character of the story, and that he is destined to get the girl. The dangerous thing about Hal's crush towards Roxanne is that at no point in the movie did he lose the belief that they are meant to be, that though he is incompetent, somehow only he has the right to be with her. And what made this dangerous is that instead of having this lie challenged, it was further empowered. In his endeavor to fight a hero again, Megamind played God, and by accident turned Hal into one. Through Metroman's genes, Megamind synthesized a serum that gives anyone Metroman's power and physique. He was in the midst of choosing someone who is similar to Metroman, brave, strong, with a sense of justice, but as fate would have it, this did not come to pass. Instead, they got Hal. They got Titan. This serum transformed him. His physique changed from Jonah Hill to Channing Tatum. He also gained the powers of Metroman, such as strength, speed, flight, and laser eyes. Megamind has successfully made his rival. However, he only made the physical aspect of him, What he wasn't aware of was that he didn't inject Hal with bravery and justice. He injected him with an even stronger lie. That he, of all people, is a hero. And as they say, the good guy always gets the girl. With this lie of being the good guy reinforced, Hal was trained by Megamind on how to fight evil and such. However, it was not how he expected it to go. Even in training, Titan was ruthless, careless. He didn't care about the safety of the environment or the people around him. In his mind, the only true way for justice was violence. So much so that Megamind doubted if they got the right person. I think it's a nice touch that Megamind, through his countless encounters with Metroman, a paragon, believed that anyone who is given such great powers would inherently use them for good, that they will use it for justice. It was a wake-up call for him that Hal's only goal with this power is to get Roxanne, to save her and claim his destiny. And this is what he does. Even before his big debut, even before he was ready, Titan flew over to Roxanne, showing off the powers he has, and because of this power, Roxanne couldn't push back like she always does. Titan's lie was at its strongest at this point. He couldn't wait to unmask, both literally and metaphorically. He believed that the only thing keeping him and Roxanne apart was the fact that Hal wasn't like Metroman. And now that he is, he will definitely get the girl this time. A lie so strong that he believes that they are already together. Unfortunately for him, it was just that. A lie. A delusion that was not challenged and allowed to go rampant. He believed himself to be the good guy, and the good guy gets the girl, right? So what happens to a character when that lie that gave him control and power finally breaks and rejects him? I love the parallel between Megamind and Titan when they both faced rejection, when their lie crumbles and were faced with the truth. Both returned to their roots, to who they really are, dropping their facade as someone good. But where Megamind was inherently good all along, Hal was a different story. Upon facing the truth that powers don't automatically make you achieve your goal, Hal dropped the good guy act, adopting Titan as his main personality. He lost all his ambition to do good. Instead of opting to use his powers to fight evil, he committed evil, which ticked off Megamind, saying that he should have stepped up to become the hero. But Titan thought it was boring, and his only reward for doing good has rejected him, squandering the chance for justice in chase of personal gain. Titan didn't even bother to show up to fight Megamind. Instead, he just lazed about his apartment and played video games. Megamind was obviously pissed, but being the veteran villain, he knew exactly which buttons to push to get Titan to bring him to justice. Or so he thought. After rage-baiting Titan spectacularly, the two duked it out, rekindling Megamind's spark for battle and reliving his days fighting Metroman. But something was off. Titan was even more brutal than before. His punches packed a wallop, and there wasn't even any playful banter, only pure rage from the side of Titan. When the hero finally got the villain down to his knees, Megamind expected Titan to just throw him in jail. But this wasn't Titan's idea of justice. He had something else in mind, to exact his revenge on the man that stole his goal. This is what made me terrified of Titan. A villain fueled by pettiness and selfish desires, driven by delusion. He is a villain that is all too real. We all know the type. The creepy simp that believes themselves to be the victim, that no girl will ever get with the nice guy. The type that never takes no for an answer, that gets violent with rejection and never takes accountability, and who is deep down a big coward. If you're a person that is unfortunate enough to encounter such a character, then you know the dangerous lengths they can go to, the threat they become when they gain access to a small bit of power. That is Titan. A simp too enveloped in his own delusions. He is such an accurate representation of that type of character, something you'd believe will happen if someone in the real world ever gains superpowers. Actually, you don't even have to imagine it. Just think about the countless horror stories people have about this exact type of delusion and the power they held against them. And the violence and destruction Titan brought about Metro City just reminded me of that type of person. Now that he is unchecked and unchained, he has come to grips with the truth Roxanne gave him. And instead of using this for a positive character arc, he lashed out and chose to harm her instead. The traditional nice guy sign-off. Normally I'd praise the hell out of this type of villainy, how deliciously evil it is, but I didn't feel that way when watching Titan. All I felt was genuine horror and disgust. Because all throughout the film, Hal was an unlikable piece of shit. For his type of character, you'd believe that he was somewhat smart and sweet, but no. He is a dork, but he was a complete idiot. He was never sweet, just masquerading as a sweet person. He was cowardly, pushy, creepy, and insecure, everything that was unjustly enabled when he was given powers. And that is a point for Megamind's writing team, because if it was only him as the villain, then I wouldn't have enjoyed the film half as much. It's a good thing we have an actual fun villain to balance Titan out, a foil that made both of them shine. It was also what made his defeat so cathartic, sapping everything that enabled him and reducing him back to the loser he was. I love that he cowered in the face of Metro Man, that when his absolute power is challenged, he reverts back to the same cretin of a man he truly is. In the end, Titan was just that. An unlikable character to begin with, enabled by the powers he didn't deserve. A villain that is far too real and far too terrifying.